It was a chilly Friday evening in Lagos, Nigeria, and the city was its usual bustling self, with cars honking in the gridlocked traffic, street vendors calling out their wares, and the distant sound of Afrobeat music playing from a nearby bar. Amidst the chaos, Adiz was wrapping up her work at the corporate law firm where she had been working for the past 3 years. Adiz was in her late 20s, a sharp, ambitious lawyer known for her meticulous attention to detail. But tonight, she felt a strange unease, a feeling that something was off. As she packed up her files and shut down her computer, her phone buzzed on her desk. It was a call from an unknown number. Normally, Adiz would ignore such calls, but something compelled her to answer this one. "Hello," she said cautiously. There was silence on the other end for a moment, then a faint, crackling sound, followed by a voice, deep and unfamiliar. "Adiz, you don't know me, but you're in danger. You need to leave your office immediately. Don't trust anyone." The line went dead. Adiz stared at her phone in disbelief, her heart pounding. She checked the number again, but it was blocked. She quickly scanned her office. Everything seemed normal, her colleagues were still working late, the cleaning staff had just started their rounds, and the security guard was at his post by the entrance. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the call as a prank or a wrong number. But as she gathered her belongings to leave, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. She couldn't shake the sense that someone was watching her, that the call had been a warning she couldn't afford to ignore. Adiz decided to take the warning seriously. She grabbed her things and left the office, telling herself she was being paranoid but not willing to take any chances. She opted to take the stairs instead of the elevator, the air feeling heavier with each step she descended. When she reached the ground floor, she noticed the security guard was no longer at his post. The building was unusually quiet, almost too quiet for a Friday evening. As she exited the building and stepped into the bustling streets of Lagos, she felt a momentary sense of relief. But it didn't last long. As she walked toward the car park where she usually picked up a ride, she noticed a black SUV with tinted windows slowly following her from a distance. Her heart began to race again. She increased her pace, trying to blend in with the crowd of people leaving their offices for the night. The SUV matched her speed, keeping a steady distance behind her. Adiz could feel her palms sweating as she struggled to maintain her composure. She ducked into a side street, hoping to lose the vehicle in the maze of alleys that cut through the city. But as she turned the corner, she nearly collided with a man standing in the shadows. He was tall, dressed in a black suit, his face partially obscured by the brim of his hat. The man reached out to steady her, but Adiz pulled back, her instincts screaming at her to run. "Adiz," he said, his voice the same deep tone she'd heard on the phone. "You need to trust me. They're after you." Adiz didn't wait to hear more. She turned and bolted down the alley, the man's voice calling after her, but she didn't stop. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. Who was this man? Who was after her? And why? She could hear footsteps behind her, more than one pair. The alley was narrow and winding, the buildings on either side towering above her, blocking out the last of the evening light. She could feel her pulse in her throat as she sprinted through the maze of streets, the sound of her pursuers growing louder. Just when she thought she'd lost them, she turned another corner and found herself in a dead-end alley. There was nowhere to go, just high walls and locked doors. She spun around, her breath coming in ragged gasps, as the man from earlier appeared at the entrance to the alley, followed by 2 other men, both dressed in dark clothing. "Adiz," the man said again, this time more urgently. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. But you need to listen to me." Adiz's back was against the wall, literally and figuratively. She was trapped, but something in the man's eyes told her he was telling the truth. Or at least, he believed he was. She had no other options. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. "My name is Chike," he said. "I work for someone who has been watching you for a long time. There's something in your possession that they want, something that could expose them. They'll stop at nothing to get it." Edie's frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I don't have anything." "Yes, you do," Chike insisted. "You just don't realize it. The files you're working on, the ones for that big contract your firm is handling, it's all connected. There's corruption at the highest levels, and you've stumbled onto something dangerous." Edie's mind flashed back to the files she'd been reviewing over the past few weeks. There had been some discrepancies, things that didn't add up. She had planned to dig deeper, but with her heavy workload, she hadn't gotten around to it. Could that be what this was all about? "Why should I trust you?" Edie asked, still wary. "Because if you don't, they'll kill you," Chike said bluntly. "They're coming right now. We need to move." Chike grabbed Edie's hand and pulled her towards a fire escape ladder. They climbed up quickly, reaching the rooftop just as the other men reached the alley. From the roof, they could see the black SUV below, its engine idling as more men emerged, scanning the area. "We need to get you out of the city," Chike said as they jumped from one rooftop to the next. "I have a safe house where we can lay low until I figure out our next move." Edie was still processing everything, her mind spinning. This couldn't be real, it felt like something out of a movie. But the fear in her gut told her it was all too real. They made their way across the rooftops, finally descending into a quiet residential area far from the city center. Chike led her to an old, nondescript car parked on the side of the road. As they got in, Edie noticed the car was packed with emergency supplies, food, water, first aid kits. Chike had planned for this. They drove in silence for what felt like hours, leaving the city lights behind. The further they went, the darker and quieter the surroundings became. Finally, they reached a secluded area near the outskirts of Lagos, where Chike pulled into a hidden driveway leading to a small, abandoned house. "Stay here," Chike said as they entered the house. "I need to make some calls." Edie sat down on a dusty couch, her mind racing. She replayed the events of the evening, trying to make sense of everything. Who were these people after her? What did they want? And who exactly was Chike? Chike returned a few minutes later, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said. "They've tracked us here. We need to leave, now." "But where will we go?" Edie asked, panic rising in her chest. "There's a boat waiting for us at the harbor," Chike said. "It'll take us to a safe location where you'll be protected. But we have to move fast." Edie hesitated. This was all happening too quickly. She didn't know if she could trust Chike, but she had no choice. She nodded, and they left the house, driving towards the harbor. As they approached the harbor, Edie noticed something strange. The streets were deserted, eerily quiet for a Friday night. Chike seemed tense, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. They parked the car and made their way to the docks, where a small boat was waiting. But just as they were about to board, the sound of gunfire erupted behind them. Edie screamed, ducking for cover as Chike pulled out a gun and returned fire. The men who had been chasing them had found them. "Run!" Chike shouted, pushing Edie towards the boat. Edie ran, her heart pounding in her chest as bullets whizzed past her. She reached the boat and jumped in, Chike following close behind. He quickly started the engine, and they sped away from the dock, the sound of gunfire fading into the distance. As they sailed out into the open water, Edie finally allowed herself to breathe. They were safe, for now. As they sailed further from the shore, Chike turned to Edie. I know this has been terrifying for you, but you're safe now. We'll get to the bottom of this and make sure you're protected. Adiz nodded, still shaken but relieved to have escaped. But just as she was starting to feel a glimmer of hope, she noticed something strange. The boat was heading in the wrong direction. "Chike," she said cautiously, "where are we going?" Chike didn't respond. His expression had